Okay, so Keychron, in my view, is probably the most mainstream enthusiast mechanical keyboard manufacturer out there. And it usually worries me when I try stuff out from companies like those, because usually those mainstream companies focus way more on marketing than just making the best product that they can. And to appeal to the masses, usually a lot of those enthusiast touches are kind of lost. Like for example, in the running world, Nike is the biggest shoe manufacturer by a huge margin. But if you kind of get into it and do some research, very few of their models will actually get included in best running shoe lists that are written by true enthusiasts. And if you have a friend who's pretty into running and you ask them what shoe you should get, they'll probably tell you to go for the Brooks or Asics or something along those lines. And of course, the Nikes of the world are gonna have some halo products that are truly good so that they can sell the brand better. But on the whole, you're usually better off looking for more enthusiast brands. Now, all of that is just a really long way to say that I kind of see Keychron as the Nike of the keyboard world. And a few years ago, I tried some of their boards and I was honestly not too impressed. However, it has been quite a while since then, and when Keychron reached out and said they wanted me to take a look at their new V2 Max board, I was willing to give it another go. And spoiler alert, it's actually pretty good. So the first thing that I was kind of curious about was just where this sat in their lineup, because it had been a few years since I took a look at their website, and they have a lot of options now. But basically, my understanding is that their V series boards are their budget range, and the Max denotes a couple of upgrades, namely wireless connectivity, but mostly the same design, making this their premium budget option. And with that in mind, I think the price point of this board is pretty important. It comes in at under $100, which may sound like a lot to some for a keyboard, but anybody who's been in the hobby for a while can tell you that that definitely does put this firmly into the budget category. But then the question is, what does your money get you, and did they have to cut any corners to reach that price point? And in this video, we're going to try to answer those questions. So first of all, this is, in my opinion, a pretty well-designed, good-looking board. It's got very simple styling to it, which I think will fit most setups pretty well, but with enough flair to subtly let people know that you're a person of culture who's pretty into keyboards. The only thing that I thought was a little bit questionable was the contrasting gold screws on the bottom. Like, it's not visible from a normal viewing angle that you'd have while you're typing, but they're pretty big, and I feel like they just really take away from the rest of the design when you can see them. But I did especially like their keycap choice on here. They're calling this their OSA profile with a very rounded, soft look that I'm overall a fan of. They're also double shot PBT, which I really like because they're a lot more resistant to hand oils than ABS, and the legends will never fade away. It also includes a rotary knob, which is all the rage these days, and once you get accustomed to having one, it's kind of hard to go back. This one in particular is pretty good actually. You get some good tactile feedback, with each tick being a little bump when you turn it, and it's really satisfying. Connectivity wise, you've got wired USB-C, Bluetooth, or 2.4 gigahertz dongle, which is pretty normal, but what's really cool about this board, and I haven't actually seen this before, is that they give you both USB-C and USB-A. So if you have a MacBook like me that only has USB-C ports, you're not going to need a dongle for your dongle. And it even has a place on the keyboard itself for you to store them, which is great because I can't tell you how many of these I have lost. And while we're on the back, they also have a switch here for toggling between different connection modes and toggling between macOS and Windows. I really prefer this over having them mapped out to some hotkeys because every board has them different and I just end up forgetting them most of the time. As far as the typing experience goes, you can have your choice of Gateron Jupiter reds, browns, or bananas. I decided to check out the bananas, which are tactile switches that are very similar to Holy Pandas if you've ever tried those. And it even says on their website, similar to Panda switches, which basically means they have a very distinct tactile snappy feeling, and it is pretty uncanny how similar these are to the Pandas. It is of course hot swappable as well though, so you can always replace them with whatever switch you want. We've also got got some south-facing RGBs here. Personally, I'm just not really into it, so I usually just leave them off, but they're there if you want them. This also has a gasket mount design and case foam, which I was honestly pretty surprised to see at this price point. And it's something that you find on pretty much every premium board nowadays. Now, granted, it definitely is not the best feeling gasket mount I've ever tried, but it is nice to see those features at these lower price points. And the case foams definitely lead to a much better sound overall by dampening all the echoing inside of the case and just making it sound a lot more solid. But don't just take my word for it, I'll leave you here with a little sound test so you can hear it for yourself. So there it is, that is completely stock, and I mean, it's definitely not the best sounding or feeling board I've ever tried, but it's definitely one of the best sounding boards that I've tried in this price range. And not only that, the board also feels very solid and well put together, and I think that's something that doesn't necessarily come out on camera, but it just feels really nice in the hands. Now at this point, you may be wondering how Keychron was able to hit that price point with all of these features, and I think a lot of the savings came with the materials that they chose to use. Like, it's an entirely plastic build and doesn't have that heft that you normally associate with higher end builds. Now that being said, that was probably the right play. Like, I've seen a lot of cheaper boards use metal cases, but they usually suck, and I would much rather have a great plastic build than a sucky metal one. And as far as not having that like hefty weight, that's not something that you're gonna feel when you're actually typing and using the board. That's just for when you pick it up and play with it. So I think the corners that they decided to cut are ones that don't necessarily even really matter when it comes to the typing experience. So yeah, I really like what Keychron did here, and if you're looking for a budget-friendly 65% board, this is definitely one you should be looking at. Anyways, that's it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any comments, definitely leave those in the comments. If you like it, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.